Recording.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Connecticut Psychological Association's Social Justice Speaker Series. Tonight, we are honored to host a panel of speakers: Sujata Godkar-Wilcox, Suzanne Dichter, Jesse DePonte, and Andrew Vander. The presentation is titled Human Rights Education Through Dialogical Pedagogy and Building Community. The Oxford Consortium's innovative approach to human rights education creates transformative learning experiences through dialogical engagement and relational teaching. This model builds learning communities where diverse perspectives drive participants toward advocacy and meaningful action. Welcome, everyone. Also, I want to say thank you to our donors. As you know, we depend on fundraising efforts to support this vital work. We truly appreciate your support, which keeps this important initiative going and thriving. I'm going to share the donation slides with you. And as you see in the slides, at the platinum level, we have comprehensive neuropsychological services who donated us for the 5th consecutive year. The CPA Educational Foundation for the 3rd consecutive year. And Stacy Tata has generously donated $5,000 to the Social Justice Committee in memory of her beloved parents, Dr. Jack and Lynn Plummer. Also, you see the name of our supporters here. Now I'm going to turn it over to Beth to share about our STEAM speakers.
Thank you, Shiva. Sujata Gadkar-Wilcox is Executive Director at the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights. She also is a Quinnipiac University professor and a Connecticut State Senator. Susan R. Dichter is Chief Operating Officer at the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights with 21 years in higher education mentorship programs. Jesse DePonte is Program Director at Team Success Scholars, specializing in equitable educational opportunities. And finally, Andrew Van Orden is a CPA member, an Oxford Consortium alumnus, and psychology student focused on de-radicalization work, and our very own Social Justice Speaker Series committee member. It is now my distinct honor to invite our team's panel to lead us through what promises to be an insightful and inspiring presentation. Dear panel, the platform is yours.
Thank you so much. And I think Beth is what you prefer, right? Not Elizabeth. I heard
I go by
so
Beth.
Thank you so much, Beth. I want to make sure I go with your preferred name. Thank you for the introduction, Shiva. Thank you for having us, and particularly Andrew Van Orden, who had just participated in the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights. Thank you so much for inviting us, because we're here because of you. And that's what we want to see. We want to support our students, and we want them to come out and to lead initiatives, and we're there to support them. So this is all at the initiative of Andrew. So thank you, Andrew. So hi, everyone. Let me share my PowerPoint. I wanted to just tell you a little bit about the consortium and hope that it helps you in your own work. So for me, I have had the honor to be the executive director for the consortium for about a decade now. And the consortium, it's the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights. You see a group of our students here. It's actually, we do bring students to Oxford University. We've also had workshops in the Global South, in Brazil, we planned one in Kenya, and we're planning one in India. And we take a different approach to human rights. So the focus of our workshop is really merging theory, practice, and action. And in that way, the workshop itself is a kind of human rights process. We're very process oriented about how we're sort of building relationships and building community. And so I think that's sort of significant because we build from a place of the experience of human rights. You know, a lot of human rights workshops focus on, especially in the legal field, you know, I can tell you about the treaties and the statutes that are out there and all these organizations doing the work. But we really focus on the experience of human rights. You know, how do we create a community that understands the critical need for advocacy around human rights? How do we build the partnerships that enable students who don't otherwise have the opportunities to engage in these kinds of conversations, to be at the table, and then to continue that work in human rights? So you'll see here, one of the unique things about the Oxford Consortium is it's our collaborative partnerships. Whenever people hear the word Oxford, they think, oh, you know, you're sending students to like one of the richest and most prestigious universities in the world. This isn't a program, honestly, for Yale students to go to Oxford. This is a program for students who don't have a direct pipeline to Oxford, but who belong there. Students who are absolutely brilliant, but because they didn't have the resources, or their institutions where they're studying don't have the resources, they don't have that direct pipeline to Oxford. And so we've created a partnership of universities, both four-year universities and community colleges, and also undergraduate programs and graduate programs from multiple disciplines. We've created an opportunity to create an access point for students who didn't otherwise have the opportunity to be in Oxford. And I can't tell you what that means. You know, so in Connecticut, that means that we've been sending students from every, and Susan and Jesse will talk a little bit more about this, but from every Connecticut community college to Oxford University. That's really amazing because most human rights programs in these Ivy League or Ivy League equivalent universities, you know, they open sort of opportunities here and there for students who aren't coming directly from a partner university, but not really. You know, that's not their focus. And our focus is the access piece in itself. It's not just about teaching students human rights. It's about creating that space for students to become human rights activists, and particularly creating that space for students who don't otherwise have it. And it's unbelievable to us, like you see here with Andrew, I give you this workshop as an example of what we wouldn't be doing without the Oxford Consortium. It's because of students like Andrew who come and then leave and take an initiative. That's what the whole workshop is kind of geared towards. So understanding the sort of the experience of human rights. So some of the key things that, you know, we hope you can take away in terms of the pedagogy that we focus on is really about, again, it's not just about human rights as a content area. Yes, we have incredible speakers from Oxford that come and talk to students and talk about sort of different aspects of human rights, which are themed. So we have a number of workshops that are themed around different issues, whether it's climate, it's peace and conflict, so humanitarian action, it could be migration, it could be human rights activism. So we have different sort of themes in human rights that we pull together. We have a very popular one now, technology and human rights. But the theme is actually less important than the process of building the community among the participants. And that's really what we wanted to share, because the real goal for any of those workshops, regardless of the theme, whether it's on climate, whether it's on technology, whether we're talking about migration, the goal is really to talk to students about how they can have a commitment to human rights in their everyday life. You know, people always think like, oh, I'm going to come to these workshops and the only way I can engage in human rights is to become a human rights lawyer. Very few people come out of law school or, you know, any graduate or undergraduate experience and go straight into, you know, a full career in just the human rights field. And that's what a lot of these workshops are geared towards. But our workshop is geared towards helping students kind of understand what the systems of oppression look like, you know, where you can see vulnerabilities, how you can identify those vulnerabilities, and then giving them the tools to address those issues themselves, including looking at global issues and taking them back to the local community. So it's really, what can you be doing to think about human rights in your everyday life and in your professional commitments? How do we tackle vulnerabilities? How do we integrate this in our daily practices? And particularly for the Oxford Consortium, it involves a merging of the study of human rights and the practice of human rights. So oftentimes when we study human rights, if you're studying labor, for example, you're often not at the picket lines, and that's a problem, because we should be able to see what's happening at the picket lines at the same time that we're studying economic systems that oppress. And when you're at the picket lines, oftentimes you don't have the time to be engaging in like reflexive study where you're thinking about how does the entire system look. You're just trying to address a short-term vulnerability. So what's really important about our approach to human rights is it's one of human rights praxis, where we're bringing together the study of human rights and the practice of human rights, and then allowing students to have the tools to then go back and take all of those foundational principles and theories of human rights into their community, but building from compassion and empathy. And most importantly, I would say is we're trying to build relationships and a community among the students. So this is, you see, our kind of pedagogical approach is we start with the theoretical foundation for human rights. Oh, I forgot we did I used to organize a workshop at the United Nations, so that's a picture you see here. And we try to look at these sort of theoretical abstract principles, which is oftentimes what we focus on for most of the time in the classroom, and then break that down by critically reflecting on those principles, and by having and really looking at alternative perspectives, looking at limitations of those systems, and also how social movements were able to use these policies and these human rights instruments as leverage to advance their own cause and to create change in local community. And then once we do all of that, we have students actually apply what they're learning in a community setting. So if you see here, this is actually a picture from like more than a decade ago. I think this was from 2014. It's a picture in New Haven, in fact, in Connecticut, because we were working with IRIS at the time. And the picture on the bottom, they're both, that's actually the Schweitzer Institute at Quinnipiac, the UN, and then we have New Haven, because we were there working with IRIS to think about how the refugee community was impacted by education policies. So we talked to various stakeholders in the community, and we were working with IRIS and one of our scholars, Nabil Hamdi, who's a practitioner of community action planning, to actually apply those principles. So this is our kind of pedagogical model. And I have a number of pictures I wanted to share, and Susan and Jesse are going to talk more about kind of the concrete impact in Connecticut. But a lot of what we do is creating an opportunity for dialogue, because that kind of relationship of human rights has to be thought of as relational and experiential. We have to understand what it means, what a deprivation of a right means. It's not enough to say you have the right not to be hungry. What does it even mean for someone not to be hungry? So how do we create that kind of that work and that dialogue? Is we have students sort of engaging on topics very closely in groups together. And then you'll see here I have some pictures of what our workshops look like. We also have content areas. So we have experts who come in to talk to students about various themes to give them a kind of foundation of human rights. But what's really important, again, is for the Oxford Consortium is creating kind of an access for these students, some of them like who've never even stepped on a plane, have never gone have never left Connecticut, have never left their own state. So we have students that are coming from all over the country. They're coming from Oregon, from Utah, from California, from Mississippi, from Kentucky, from Florida, from Connecticut. But again, the universities are similar in the sense that they don't have direct pipelines to places like Oxford. And outside of this workshop, these students may not have the opportunity to be in a place like Oxford. And we can see that and we feel it at the beginning of the workshop, because we feel the hesitation for these students to speak up, because it's not like the students who frankly come out of Harvard and Yale who are told every time that everything they say is the most brilliant thing anybody has ever heard. These students, in fact, say the same things because they're quite brilliant, but they don't initially think that. And it's really incredible, at least for me, to see the transformation of these students. By the time we get to the end of the workshop, they are just completely transformed. One, they know that this other group that's around them, they're also going to be there as a supportive community. But they realize how valuable their own input is. So they're asking questions of Oxford scholars that the Oxford scholars can't answer. And they're starting to feel really good about themselves. And that's what we want. you know. And here's our one of our founders, Hugo Slim, who is a faculty member at Oxford and was at the ICRC, the International Committee for the Red Cross. So he focuses a lot on our policy work and humanitarian work, but really more, again, building the sense of community among the students. And then part of the model for the workshop is, again, inviting some of the leading scholars and practitioners. That's why we leverage the Oxford name, because we have the networks and the affiliations to leverage some of the leading scholars, including here you see a former senior human rights officer at the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights. When we get people, they're very good. And there's a reason for that, so that students can be exposed and they have a new network as well. But then they also realize that they're bringing something to the table. And this is part of the experiential piece, whether we're working with IRIS, which is the picture you see at the bottom, or we're working in the UN. You know, there's always a piece where the students are engaging and then presenting. And I think Susan and Jesse are going to talk more about the concrete impact and the presentations in Connecticut. But we always end with student presentations because we want to make sure students are building that toolkit for action. And so how do they put together all the themes we've talked about? And sometimes from scholars that have contradicted themselves, which we think is okay. We think it's okay to, you know, to say that human rights sometimes is contested. And what does that mean? And how do we approach that? You know, because ultimately the thing we care about is not that we all agree, but we're looking to reduce vulnerability. And that's the real social justice work. So we start by not only talking about it, but we embody that at the Oxford Consortium. And I can tell you, for me, like with the faculty members even that come, we become our own community and we become our own family because we embody these principles that we need to work together as a community. So we can't just talk the talk without walking the walk too. So we all, you know, we build this sense of community very, very intentionally because our goal isn't just human rights. Our goal is building empathy, is building compassion, is helping students understand what vulnerability means, and then giving them the tools to go and make change in their own community by being empowered to feel they have the voice and they have the authority to be able to do that. And this is just pictures of them, you know, having fun. And then some of the statements in their own words of what this meant for them, that not only did they learn something, but almost always we hear the word transformative. You know, this was a transformative workshop. And, you know, what's hard for me is we have students sometimes that say that for a lot of things and in academic contexts. And to tell you the truth, I don't know that all the things they say are transformative feel transformative. That's the problem. I feel everything is transformative. To me, though, this does feel, I see them transform. To me, that's why it's transformative. I see them quiet in the beginning, you know, hesitant to speak, because again, these are not the students that had the direct pipeline. And then by the end, they realize, wait a minute, that's just because I didn't have access to the resources that other people had access to. But look at what I can contribute, look at what I can do. And then they come back and do things like this and say, I'm organizing, I'm working with a group. Can you do this with me? And of course we say yes, because that's what we're there to do. But that's a very different approach for human rights, you know, than a lot of human rights workshops. So I just wanted to give you that kind of overview, and then I'll turn it over to Susan and Jesse, and we're gonna hear from Andrew too about his own personal experience. So I'll turn it over to Susan and Jesse, and then we'll happy to take questions at the end.
Thank you, Sujata. And thank you, Shiva, for inviting us. And Andrew, it's wonderful to have you bring us into this space. You're doing exactly what we hope for with our alumni. So I'm going to attempt to share a screen. And Jesse, I'm going to have you start, actually, because I'm going to start with a slide on your credit course. So
okay. Wonderful. Yes, thank you to everybody for being here, taking the time. And to Andrew, I was fortunate enough to work with Andrew in the virtual classroom to see his amazing abilities and his passion for human rights and all things, you know, people, which is really, really great. So as Sujata mentioned, we work really hard to make this an equitable opportunity, especially for community college students. I'm sure Susan will talk a little bit about how we kind of got to this statewide level. But long story short, Susan and I came home from one of these conferences and we said, we have to get as many students here as we physically can. So we built a program through CT State Community College, which is now one giant college. And we now have an application process in which we allow students to apply, and we dig for funding so that the community college students don't have to pay for their courses often, or pay for this opportunity. So building this course was part of that initiative of providing accessibility and making sure that our students are ready to enter the space in Oxford. As Sujata had mentioned, sometimes they come in extremely intimidated, thinking like, I've never been to another country. I've never left Connecticut. How am I going to sit in a classroom with all of these other students and feel like I have the things that I need? So we really pedagogically decided that it was best to build a course that supports our students before they go, so they feel like they have equal footing when they step into that Oxford classroom. So Nabil Hamdi, pictured here, who Sujata had mentioned before, has a wonderful text. His background is in architecture, but he talks a lot about building community and what he calls community action projects. So our students typically use his book, which is the Placemaker's Guide, which is a brilliant read. I highly recommend it. And it really kind of sets the foundational tone for students to be able to create their own projects, right? So Sujata mentioned taking these big global concepts. They always come back from Oxford with a fire lit underneath them. So how do they take that passion that they see in Oxford and how do they bring it to New Haven, or how do they bring it to Hartford or Shelton, wherever they might be? And this class is built to help them do that. So we go through a pretty extensive project in which they have to look in their local backyards in their own communities, and they build what's called a mock project. So they're responsible for identifying a need, identifying stakeholders, and identifying process and breaking down a pretty extensive project. What I love about this project is it's homegrown. So they really look at their own backyard to see what they need. And I've had a lot of students who actually say, this is something that I can do, right? They look at this, because we talk about what makes a project, what makes it sustainable and what makes it able to actually happen, right? And sometimes that means starting smaller. So giving them the skills to see how this small catalyst project is what we typically call it, how this catalyst can launch them. So we've had students who came home, and I actually had a few students who decided they wanted to apply for a grant on our campus to make our campus more sustainable after their climate workshop. So they applied to have sustainable water bottles on campus, which is not like, it took some work, but it was a step in the right direction. So that's really what we want to see in human rights work. So that is the main crux of this class. We also, Oxford does a really nice job of sending out articles that are tied to the theme of the workshop. So we help our students to kind of get through some of these really dense academic journals. And then we also do a unit on leadership, which is just tapping into what are your styles of leadership? What are your styles of communication? What kind of work do you like to do? How can you get involved in your community? It's gone really well. The students also present while in Oxford, which is perhaps what I think one of the most meaningful things is that they get to put on their resume that they presented at Oxford University. I think that's a pretty special thing. So we help them build a group presentation that talks about their community action projects. And it gives them the opportunity to stand on a world stage, really, and talk about the amazing things they're doing. So it's been a joy to partake in everything Oxford. I'm very lucky to teach this course, and this is really specific to Connecticut and CT State. But we're hoping we have other partners from other universities and campuses. We share curriculum, so we're really trying to lift this off into a more intensive piece of our programming. So that's the class, and I will give it to Susan and chime in whenever you need me to chime in, Susan.
Awesome. Thank you. So I have to quickly stop share because I lost the screen, and I'm very happy that everybody else sees the slide because I lost it. So bear with me just for a second. I'm going to stop share and then I'm going to share again. And I didn't want to like bug up Jesse. So, okay. Everybody see it okay? Awesome. Okay. I'm actually going to go back one slide. I just want to show you that at the end of the week, we have a final dinner, which is it's kind of like sharing the accolades of everything that they've accomplished at the week. They've heard these speakers all week long, and they've done their presentation just like 12 hours before. So they're really like hyped up. They've delivered their community action planning project that Jesse talked about, that talks about what they're anticipate that they potentially will be doing back home in their communities. It's really about, thinking globally and then going back home, in this case, Connecticut, and applying it. So it's a pretty amazing thing. And you can see that they get certificates, which they can certainly share with potential employers. And it's something they can put on their resume that they attended a workshop at Oxford University. It's pretty amazing. And then Jesse talked about the course. So back home in Connecticut, so when they go to Oxford, toward the end of the week, they each have to present what they potentially want to do when they get back home in Connecticut or in their home state. And when you think about it, they have students from across the globe who are here. So our students in Connecticut get to hear what students in, let's say, Utah, Oregon, Kyunghee University in South Korea, we hear what those students are thinking about and what they're troubled with and what they want to potentially do some action with. So they learn a lot from each other, and this is 100% a student-led workshop in the sense they're feeding off of each other. So it's pretty amazing. So this is actually part of a slideshow. It's 65 or so slides long. It's incredibly long. I'm going to speed through some of this, but I wanted to show you basically after they come back to Connecticut. And these are the slides that they actually presented in Oxford as part of their student presentations. And I will say that we got involved as a community college system in 2017. We were sending one student from Northwestern for a number of like 2 or 3 years. We were just sending one student there, and they would come back. And again, it would be transformative. It was just incredible, the change that you saw in those students, because these are students who had no idea that they potentially could go to Oxford, and let alone that they had a voice to say anything at these workshops. And they would come back, and I can tell you so many individual stories of students who have gone and come back and completely different person. And I actually have traveled with Andrew a couple of years ago. So Andrew is one of the many ones I've traveled with, and each one is just an amazing student. So this is community action planning. We use the PEAS model, and this is something that Jessie uses in her course. It's basically Nabil Hamdi's model for how do you find a project in your community, and how do you engage in the work to make some sustainable change in your home community. So it goes through this model that they follow. They're encouraged to pick their own topic and do something that creates a sustainable change. And I know all these students, I know all their faces, I know what they're doing. They're all Connecticut community college students, which we've had over 50 community college students so far go to these workshops since 2017, and over 1,000 students globally who have gone to these workshops. So we really are touching many students' lives, which is pretty incredible. So this is basically a part of a presentation that when we got back to Connecticut, we presented this to campus presidents, deans, and so to potentially get, to buy into this program. Each Connecticut CT State Community College funds their student, at least one student, to go to these workshops, so the students don't pay to go. So this gives you an idea of like, this is from 2013. This is from Middlesex Community College, and this is what they presented. And I'm just going to kind of go through. She's talking about, it's been a while since I actually looked at these ones. I'm going to kind of go through. She talks about a Speak Club LGBTQ community, and she wants to spread awareness. There's a lot of talking going on, so you miss a lot because these are just slides. But this is Middlesex. We had one from another Middlesex student, Emily Adams. I think, Jesse, you were on this workshop, right? I did not go to this particular one.
Yeah, so we this workshop in particular, students when they're building this group project, they have the option of either speaking about something local to them, right? Because the perk of having CT State is we have students from all over Connecticut. So in this case, the students decided to talk about individual projects that they were their community action projects. The other option that students have is they can pick a topic and kind of talk about, whether it be education or homelessness or veteran services, whatever it might be. And they kind of pick an organization within their community that's tied to that. So this group really decided to kind of pick a topic, talk about their community action project, the thing that they were really passionate about. So it's a real lesson for them pedagogically. I mean, just thinking about how students learn. They have 20 minutes to complete this whole presentation. And when you're in a group of 5 or 6 people, right, and you're talking about these various topics, how do you weave that together? So working in teams and how to do a group presentation is a really important skill they learn. So to Susan's point, these students decided to talk about what they were doing on their home campuses.
So this is something in their local community that they were talking about is housing situation, which is a huge topic. So, and again, this is not something that Northwestern Connecticut, where our home base is, we would know a lot about. So even within Connecticut, there's a lot of pieces of Connecticut that we just don't have a lens on. So the students actually help all of us to look, from an outside perspective in to see what are the concerns in their local community. So I'm going to kind of speed through a little bit. This is actually the water bottle initiative that Northwestern students did. It's not something that actually happened, but it was something that they spec'd it out. They had this idea like, wow, this would be really great if we could talk more about, not using so much plastic and not having these plastic bottles. Every time you go to a conference, they have these plastic bottles that you open them, you use them, and then they get thrown away. So they had a big initiative, and they actually applied for a grant. They didn't get the grant, but they went through the process of applying, which is a huge thing. The students had no idea how to do this. So it's that was their project. So they went through this and presented it. And this is actually the group. This is Quinebaug Valley Community College. So we're on the eastern side of Connecticut, which, Connecticut's bigger than you think. I'm a New York State girl, but Connecticut's still big. And they did their takeaways. And their takeaways were cats and cookies too, but they did a lot of pictures, bringing home what we learned. So community food drives is what they wanted to focus on. So they focused on what's happening in the Quinebaug Valley Community College area and what potentially they could do, what community food drives. And again, I'm just going to buzz through because there's a lot of slides here. This is Hugo Slim, our president of the Oxford Consortium for Human Rights. He leads us. He's amazing. They talked about some speakers. This is their group. Now we're at Gateway Community College. Capital. So we're going Central State. This is Jasmine Lull, and this is her takeaway. Again, she wanted to show, things that she experienced there. She looked at some takeaways from Oxford. Encouraged me to be more involved in my community. I love that one. That's really what we're trying to do is, they don't even know anything, but, they somehow they ended up in Oxford because they had a curiosity. They wanted to do more, know more about human rights, and they go there and they come back and then they realize, wow, I really can be an effective change in my local community. And here are some tools that I can put it into my toolkit to make that happen. So it's very powerful to see that happen with the students. Gun violence. This is what the Capitol that Jasmine wanted to talk about. And again, they had a very short time and there was a lot of talking in addition to the slides, so I'm just going to zoom through. And this is Owen Edminster. He's from Norwalk Community College, so we're going to the South Shore. This is Owen on the right-hand side, an amazing young man, and it's Isaiah, one of our students from Northwestern. And he wanted to talk about the REAP model. And he was looking at things that were happening specifically on his campus. So he looked at this, the land and how it's used. He made a picture of a Norwalk's campus, and they weren't very pleasing, but they're very they're very open. He's being very honest about how this land is being used and how how it's not being used well and potentially for change. So this was pretty sobering for me to see that this is one of our CT State community colleges. Okay, so that was him. Rebecca Myers, she was Gateway again. Oh, sorry, I went too fast with her. Save the Sound. She was talking about Save the Sound. I think she did more talking than visual presentation, but this was her presentation. Inez Ortiz is one of my better known students. She actually went to Northwestern, transferred to Southern, and she studied sustainability, science, and environmental policy. She was working for Brownstone, a company, and she's switched recently. She was at Sustainable CT. Now she's working at Brownstone Reuse in Connecticut. Brilliant young woman, and she actually attended our virtual workshops at first, and then after COVID, she attended one of ours. Our workshops at Oxford. Oh, and I guess that was it. So that was the last one we had. So I will stop sharing real quick. So that's a real quick kind of an idea of what the students present. They develop this presentation while they're in Jesse's class, and at other universities, they have a similar type of model where they take a 3-credit class. They prepare to go to Oxford. They have a sense of, we charge them with, creating their presentations before they come, so they have an idea of what they're going to have. They incorporate what they learned there, and then they present that at Oxford. And ideally, they come back to their home community and then they apply that and make change in their local community. Andrew was no different than that. I saw Andrew personally. I saw him go from someone when he first stepped foot on the airplane. I don't know, Andrew, you can speak for yourself, but I think you didn't know what you were quite getting into, but where you're here today, you made this event happen, and now you have a real sense of what you want to do with your human rights thinking. So you're just one of many examples, and I will share that out, and I'm going to let Andrew take over.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. I'm so glad that you could join us, and I'm sure I've blabbed to many of you about the OCHR before, so I'm glad that you can see for yourselves how great it is. I wanted to share first how I got involved with the OCHR, and it actually all started one day when I was 16 years old, and I was feeling like a very silly goose, and I tried to kill myself. After I came home from the hospital, after about a month, I still wasn't really ready to live yet. So I ended up hiding away from the world for about another 8 years. For 8 years, I hardly had any contact with other people besides my father, and that was really only because I lived with him. It took a while, but I spent some time asking myself what a life worth living would look like and what that vision would require of me. So I set out to build that for myself. But that was when I made a really horrible mistake and I got a job at McDonald's. For those who haven't had the pleasure, it's a really horrible place. Every McDonald's should be bulldozed to the ground, and the ground should be salted so nothing ever grows there again. And we can only hope that our descendants never tread that ground again for fear of being possessed by whatever makes people act that way at 2 a.m. in the drive-thru. Long story short, after a few months of selling chicken nuggets to drunk drivers, I was able to afford to go to community college. And I had a general sense that because of my years of seclusion, I should do everything I could to take advantage of every opportunity and make up for lost time. So naturally, when I received an email about the Oxford Consortium, I thought to myself it was such a wonderful opportunity to learn about human rights from top scholars in the world at one of the biggest universities. And as soon as I finished reading it, I decided to ignore it because I thought to myself, there's no way they would pick someone like me. But then a few weeks later, I was attending a student government meeting for the free food, and someone came in to tell us about the wonderful opportunity. And at that point, I realized I lose nothing if I apply and they say no. So I applied, but they said yes. And a few months later, I was enrolled in Jesse's class on human rights. And there was unfortunately still one barrier left for me to overcome. My community college actually wouldn't pay for my trip to Oxford at first. So even though the consortium wanted me there, I had to think fast and ended up paying for my participation with a student loan. It all worked out in the end, but I took a really big risk at the time. And that ended up being the best decision I could have made. It really was unlike anything I had ever experienced. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who actually cared about the world and wanted to do something to make it better. I learned so much that I've carried with me since, and I've met so many wonderful people that I still call friends to this day. But more than anything, getting to know the OCHR helped me realize how important it was for students like myself to have these experiences, to meet role models that show them what making positive changes it looks like, and to know that other people are out there who really do care about the world and want to take an active part in healing it. So thank you so much for listening to me, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much all. That was very impressive to know all about this. So are we ready to take some questions? So I'm asking from all our panel members.
We're right. Yeah, I think we're ready to, I just want to, yeah, I see all the applause for Andrew. He's just, every time he speaks, I'm like, we always start and then we're like, let's just let our students speak and then you understand exactly what we're doing. But yeah, happy to take any questions. And hi, Gina.
I wanted to make a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I started out thinking that this was going to be a discussion about how to help students to develop to become advocates. Interesting, I mean, it's much bigger than that. It's about community and relationships. And that's so awesome because I think it brings this to a full circle of understanding human rights. It's not just advocating, but it's understanding the plight of others. And it sounds like you do a wonderful job of getting students to know about the human conditions around the world. So I'm quite impressed with what I heard, and certainly Andrew has gotten all of us, have piqued our ears, and gotten us hungry enough to want to know more. So I've learned quite a bit tonight. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for that comment, and we appreciate it because, you know, I still think this work is not done often enough, because, and that's why I say we're very process oriented, and that's what's so important. And I hope that's what you take away from your work too. You know, it's that opportunity to build, to connect, but also the access piece. You know, that if we're just opening up human rights opportunities for students who can pay for them, or students who already have all, you know, a plethora of resources available to them, then that's not, to me, and it's not that that's not human rights work, but that's not the process piece, you know. And so we have to think about embodying the kind of human rights work that we're talking about, and I think we bring that to the table. You know, I met Susan at a conference, and we do so many things together now, and the same thing with Jesse. Like, we really become our own family, and that's true of all the faculty. When we get together, it's a community, and sometimes you don't see that. You see people doing work together, and then that's it. But when you can have a community and do that work together, it becomes an inspiring experience, like even for you. So, you know, that, and I think about this honestly as a senator in politics too. We so often forget like what it means to build a process, to be part of democracy, to show up to a protest. That's so different than clicking like and putting a face, like I've supported something. No, show up in person, to physical space. Even if nothing gets done, even if only 30 people show up, plan something, because that process of like bringing people together creates such a bond, you know, that I don't think we don't talk about it enough, because we just teach content. Here's what it means to advocate. Here's what it means to know what human rights is. But like, whoa, let's take a minute and like learn from each other and be in this space, you know? So that's what we try to do.
Can I just add one thing too, that you know, when Jessie teaches this 3 credit course, she's already creating a cohort of CT State community colleges, students across the state, and then they go to Oxford, and the students and the faculty, actually, we all stay in the dorms together, we eat together, we're in the workshops, very long days. We're typically from like 9 until sometimes 8 o'clock at night in these workshops. So, and then you know, you usually go out in the evening, and then you talk more. So by the time that week gets done, it's really magical, that sense of community. You know, I use the word family, having run mentoring programs for many years at the Connecticut Community College. That's a really critical piece, that group, that cohort can feel like they have a sense of belonging to some group or some organization. And that happens within a week's time when they're at Oxford. And it's really a critical piece to making this successful. I know Andrew, he reaches out to me and he's like, "Oh, have you seen so and so who went with us on this workshop? I haven't heard from her. You think we should reach out and see if she's okay?" I mean, this is thing that connection, that sense of family, community, it sticks. You know, it sticks through LinkedIn, it sticks through social media. And you know, these students really find colleagues and friends for life through this just one week. It's pretty amazing.
I will just chime in real quick if that's okay, and just say we also haven't talked about the amazing workshop we do in California, which is really, to Jan's point, about building advocacy and teaching students how to be advocates in their communities. It's a little more locally based in the sense of they usually are talking about, like I think the last workshop was talking about migrants who work, they live in Sonoma County and they work in the wine industry, right? And how do we advocate for these people in our community? So in California, they actually go to protests, right? They go to some of these nonprofit organizations, and they have those boots on the ground experience. And I think that teaches them that they are capable, that their voice matters, and that they have something important to say, and that people will listen to them. And I think once a student learns that, and once they understand that, it's empowering enough to launch them, right? Just like Andrew. Andrew was launched, and has gone on to do great things because he knows his voice matters. So I think that's part of building the student advocacy. And how do you teach them that? You have to, first of all, show them their value, right? And let them go from there.
Sorry, I saw your hand up. I don't know. We actually didn't talk about who's fielding questions, but I saw Gina's hand. I don't know if Andrew, maybe you're doing it. I don't know if there's a question in
I'm not sure who said it first, but there is someone in chat who is asking about how to guide a CSU student to access this program. Are they part of the consortium so far, or yet?
No, no.
Oh, what CSU?
Yeah, which college?
I'm speaking kind of generally. I'd like to know what the process is for getting them involved. I went to Southern myself, and at the time it was huge and confusing because I was young. So I'm thinking it's probably that way for people nowadays.
Yes. Well, we have had students from Southern and Western join us for the workshop. So if you know somebody there that wants to join, you know, we have an entire Connecticut contingent. So we have Quinnipiac and Sacred Heart, Trinity, UConn, Western, Southern, and then all the community colleges. So we have a good cohort that we go to. You know, we're separate schools, but then we're one Connecticut contingent. So you can send to any of us, send the information to Andrew, he'll get it to us, and then we can reach out to the person. I've been, in fact, trying to get more. My husband teaches at Western. I'm trying to get more students from the state universities as well. So we'd be happy to talk to whoever there that's interested in sending students.
Thank you.
I'll also just plug randomly, we have an annual Community Action Summit, which is really geared towards some of this local work. We've had it at Quinnipiac, we've had it at Yale, we've had it at Northwestern. This year it's going to be at Trinity College. I think the date is looking to be November 6th, and I believe that is open to the public. So I will, when we've got that kind of firmed up, I will send that info to Andrew if anybody's interested in attending. It's a great event where we have some really phenomenal speakers talking about human rights work.
And Gina, sorry, you had your hand up before.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just wanted to comment. I'm a colleague of Suchata's at Quinnipiac, and I have the pleasure of having Andrew in my class. And I come to these every month. To begin with, I'm a psychologist, but I also just wanted to comment. My son is a Quinnipiac student who went on the Oxford Consortium this past summer, and I didn't fully understand what it was. Like, I hear about it as a professor. And the best part for him was the interaction with the other students, and he has stayed in touch with them all. And he said they're from such different backgrounds, but they were the most interesting people ever. And they loved, like, at night, he's like, we all went out. And I said, oh, you went out to party? And he goes, yeah, but it was also just getting to know, like, the students from the community colleges throughout he wouldn't know. And it was just an amazing experience. So thank you. And thank you for coming and sharing it with all of us here too. To hear it from a different perspective was really just wonderful tonight.
Is that Noah, Gina? That's your son?
It is.
Oh
He has
my
a different
God.
last name, and he doesn't like me advertising. He's my
I
son.
didn't know that. Oh, that's so great. He's wonderful.
Yeah,
I was
he had
there. I
such a
know
great
Noah.
time. He said it was from start to finish. It was just a great experience.
Well, he was engaged from the beginning in the whole process. That's what's so amazing about it. It's like you just
Yeah.
like tell the students go, and like they're off,
Yep.
and then we have to keep up with them. It's great.
And the fact that he has stayed in touch with so many of them. And I know one of them is helping a Quinnipiac student has been in touch with one of the community college students who did 2 years, and she's transferring to Quinnipiac now and didn't think that was in her sort of realm of possibility. But they like talked her up, and she's going to be coming, I think, in the spring and finishing her 4 years with us, which is really exciting when she just didn't think that was in the cards for her.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And they do go to the pubs at night, but they actually honestly wind up talking about the content from the day. They don't seem to have enough hours to do it. So they wind up staying up late talking about the workshop, for like, oh, this speaker said that, and what do you think? And they have all these debates. It's fantastic.
And he said there was a day they had the option to go into London, but they decided to stay. And I said, oh, and he's a traveler and he loves it. And he goes, we just had so much to talk about and to explore on the campus and in town. And they lost track of time and just decided they were just staying and spending time together, which is so great to hear. So thank you. It's a fabulous program. I'm really excited that Quinnipiac's a part of it, and so many Connecticut colleges are.
Yeah. Thanks, Gina.
I did want to just add on to that of how you were talking about the different kinds of students who come there and how nice it is to get all these perspectives. One of the experiences I had going there was we had to pick a group topic, and when my group picked the topic, I was immediately against it because I was like, everyone's going to pick that. And I was right. Like 4 groups all had that same topic, but I was pleasantly surprised because the amount of people who have such different perspectives that we didn't really overlap. Like, we had the same topic, but we all came at it from so many different angles. And that really impressed me and made me really excited to work with these people.
Excellent. This is so impressive that we are hearing such experiences. And I'm thinking that because it seems that you do a lot of relational teaching. And during this very difficult time that it seems we really need some dialogues. Is there any workshop that you hold in Connecticut? I see that, when I work with Andrew, I see the words he's using. So do you hold any workshop that we can inform our students to participate? We participate.
Yes, and I think Jesse mentioned we do every year we do a community action summit, and that's started out as a partnership between Quinnipiac and Northwestern Connecticut Community College at the time, but now it's opened up to a number of the Connecticut partners in Connecticut, and that's going to be at Trinity. So your students are more than welcome to join us for that. I think when Jesse is taking the lead along with Ben Carbonati, who's the director of the Human Rights Program at Trinity, and they're working together to create that. So as soon as that's ready, please share it because everybody's welcome to come. In fact, we would love it because we always say that, and things always come up, and so we would absolutely love for people to come. The other thing, we had talked for a long time about doing something in Connecticut, even like we had done one workshop in California for teachers. So if you did want to do a workshop that's different than what we're doing, we're happy to talk about that too. We really are a volunteer group. So people are amazed when they see how these workshops run. They think we have like a staff of, 2 to 5 people. But we don't. We have ourselves, and we're like a volunteer group. So the board of directors is the staff. We're like one of these we're doing this because we love the work. Susan, because she retired now, is our first formal sort of chief operating officer. So we have a formal administrative officer, but she's been doing this work for a long time as a faculty member, and before that. So it's just a matter for us of capacity. But if there's something you're interested in and you think we can draw other people to that, and there's something we can contribute to, we can try to help create some kind of workshop. So we're happy to talk about that too. But in terms of inviting your students, every year we have a community action summit, so we can share that. And that this is where students talk about the work they're doing already in the community or their ideas for bringing the global to the local. And so it's a wonderful day.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. We really appreciative of our panels tonight that created that kind of excitement among us to do more for our community. Thank you, all of you. And so we are going to do the closing. I don't know, Lena, I cannot see you. Are you ready to close? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Hello. All right, well, thank you for joining us tonight, everyone. We are excited to see everyone next month at the CPA convention. Our upcoming social justice event will be on November 6th, featuring Dr. Jonathan D. as our presenter. I want to end by emphasizing that together, we are agents of challenge and empowerment for individuals and our community. No matter the amount, your generous donation to the CPA Social Justice Speaker Series helps keep education and awareness strong tools for making a difference. The donation link and mailing address are in the chat if you like to support. For those registered for continuing education, please complete the CE link to receive your certificate, which is now in the chat. Once again, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you all again, and looking forward to our ongoing work together and our collaborations.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.